build a simple multi-channel sequence with René. When you first power René on, you will see a brief boot up light show, and then you will find yourself on the X access page. How can you tell? Well, all of the colored indicator lights on the module will be red to indicate the X channel. The X channel button will also be lit red, and the indicator for access will be lit white. To begin building a sequence, patch a clock to the X clock input in the upper left corner. At any given time, one of the knobs will be lit red to indicate the current location of the sequence. With each clock pulse, you'll see the location change, in other words, the red dot moving around the grid. Let's go ahead and patch XCV to the 1 volt per octave input on our VCO. The sequence is probably not very interesting right now. It's just playing the minimum pitch on every step. The reason is that René is always playing the sequence from memory, and we haven't saved anything yet. This allows you to sequence different things across channels and states using the same set of 16 knobs. However, anytime you turn a knob, the René will register the difference, and when it reaches a knob that has changed since you selected the current channel, it will change to the new value. Try turning some or all of the knobs to new values of your choice to create a custom sequence. What about all these touch buttons? 16 of them lit red all at once on the access page. Try pressing some of the buttons to turn them off. This will cause René to skip those locations when it reaches them. This is an easy and quick way to turn a 16-step sequence into 8 steps or 10 steps or any number of steps you like. Access is one of several pages used to program the sequence. Above the 16-button grid, you'll see a row of other buttons. Left and right arrows followed by X, Y, and C channel buttons. Press the left and right arrows to switch between program pages. The current page will be lit in white. If all pages buttons are lit, you have entered the latch page. You can press the channel button again to go back to programming pages. You might notice that at each pulse at the clock input, you are also seeing a red flash at the X gate output. If you navigate to the gate page, you can use the 16 buttons to tell René which locations will generate gates. Patch your VCO through a VCA and the X gate output to the VCA's control input, or to the gate input of an envelope generator whose output is patched to the control input. This will let the gates coming from the X channel be used to generate node events. Turn gate locations on and off on the gate page to create some rhythm for your sequence. We'll dig a little deeper into these pages, but first let's take a quick look at the other channels. Press the Y or C buttons to switch to those channels, which, like X, are color-coded, green and orange respectively. On the C channel, you will notice that the channel is already being clocked, but is only moving horizontally. This is not simply because of access settings, but is in fact because the C channel is Cartesian. It uses both X and Y clocks for independent directions, X for horizontal clocking and Y for vertical clocking. Patch clocks to X and Y to see both axes move at once. The Cartesian channel has its own CV and gate output, as well as its own full set of program pages. The only page it doesn't have is the snake pattern page, which is not applicable to Cartesian motion. Try using the C and X channels both at once to sequence 2 different VCOs. The C channel's location values are different from the X channels right now because they're being read from memory instead of outputting the values you set earlier. You can always edit them on the fly by turning the knobs, and when the channel reaches a location that has changed, it will change it to the new value. However, there's also another trick. Go to the Cartesian Fun page. C button lit, LEDs orange, Fun page indicator lit, and press the upper right button, Scan. This will load the current positions of all 16 knobs into the Cartesian channel. Right now this results in a set of values that's very similar to the set we programmed into the X channel earlier. Now that you have 2 channels going, try switching back and forth between them using the X and C buttons, and altering their access and gate pages independently from each other. The result will be interlocking sequences whose relationships will create sonic complexity that is greater than the sum of its parts. We'll finish this tutorial with a brief overview of the other program pages. Try these out, programming them identically or differently per channel. Any location enabled on the glide page will have a little bit of glide or slew added to it when the CV output changes from one note to the next. This is a fun and simple way to add variety to a note sequence. Note that gate programming and envelope shape will have a big effect on the sound of the gliding, as well as the clock rate and the distance between notes. The next page is Snake, which does not appear on the Cartesian channel. On this page, instead of the 16 buttons representing locations in the sequence, they represent 16 different paths the sequence may take through the grid. This too is an easy way to create a variation on a sequence, the same notes in a different order. The next page is Fun, or Function, which contains 3 rows of channel-specific options. We'll go into detail on this one in another video. The Quantize page tells the channel which notes of the 12-tone scale are allowed to be played, allowing the creation of user-definable scales. The bottom 3 rows are labeled with note names, and only those that are engaged will appear at the output. The top row is used to set the output range in octaves of the channel, with the top left button representing a 1-octave range, the second a 2-octave range, etc. The maximum range is 4 octaves. I'm going to go ahead and use the Y channel output 2 as a timbre modulator. Turning all the top buttons off on the Q page will result in maximum output resolution and amplitude, which can be useful for more precise sequencing of modulation parameters. If you come up with a set of sequences that you particularly like, you can save this state into memory. Press the left and right buttons at once to enter the state pages. Press the C button to enter the global settings, and press the bottom right button, lit red, to store. During storing, the 16 knobs will light red. This is the only thing you can do that will make the René stop sequencing. We'll go into more detail about this process later, but for now just know that this is how you will save what you have done before powering your system off. Press left and right at once again to return to the program pages.